The engagement metric is all about time with consumers. So the purpose of the campaign is to drive a more emotional connection with consumers because we can see that we are very functional in everything we do, and because of that we're also put in a very functional frame of mind, so to speak. When consumers view at the products, then they're constantly just looking at why instead of why do I like you. That feeling and that understanding of how our products slot into their everyday lives.
Navigating social media can be, well, complicated. Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast from Cupco.
Social media. Really sucks.
Where we unpack the latest trends and help remove the suck from social media.
Welcome back to the Social Media Sucks podcast by Cupco. If you ever feel the fear of missing out when it comes to social media or marketing trends, then this is definitely the right place for you. We help you level up your marketing and business skills by covering the latest news within social media and through our inspiring guests. But before we start, please do us a favor. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel or podcast, please do so now, because it would really help us get all this inspiration, education out there for more people just like yourself. So let's get into today's episode. I have with me our beloved CEO, Chris Kooperative.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And then on my right side, I have Dennis Korsbæk Præst, who is the global brand manager at Starbucks at Arla Foods. Welcome to both of you guys.
Thank you. Good to be here.
What a nice green table I have here with the autumn colors.
What's up, green? Yes.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, Chris have
you
a
got
tendency.
The green pants.
I do. I have to, for the audience watching. I have the green pants.
So we're all green.
Yeah.
It's
nice. The autumn color, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
It's not like a spring color, but
you have like you have
dusty
dark green.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Starbucks green almost.
That's a very good.
That's what I did. I was like, okay.
Very inspiring and impressive
Trying to
segue.
get into
it brings out your eyes, Chris. Yeah. It's nice.
She's gonna tear me down in a minute. She's just building me up a little bit. Then the roast will happen. So thanks.
Only him, right?
Yeah. Only. Of course.
Poor Dennis.
I mean,
sorry for those of you listening and not watching. Dennis is a very attractive man, so just he'll be. Don't worry. You can catch the.
It's getting hot in here.
I'm getting warm.
Sorry, dude. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Didn't want to make you embarrassed.
It's okay. It's about marketing, guys. If you're tuning in just now, it's about marketing.
Is it? Yeah, it is.
Okay. And I'm not just hitting our guest. So that's how Chris makes business, apparently.
Just hit on people.
Yeah,
and it works.
It's nice.
It's what I do. I DM all the marketing managers.
Becoming more and more like an Italian businessman.
Yeah, exactly. People said I look like an Italian businessman today. I'm like, what? Apparently that's how I get business.
Yeah.
Just
have that
hit on people, make them feel awkward.
Sprinkle.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. Let's get to the real thing here.
Dennis is like, what? What did I sign up to?
Yeah.
But this is very
actually good. We'd love to talk about you and especially your career, and how did you land to this position you are today as a global brand manager, Dennis?
A very big question.
Yeah.
I also love to talk about me.
Awesome.
How did I land in my position? I think I've always approached, maybe career is a big word, because I don't consider myself that old yet to have a career. Maybe I still only have a job. It's turning into a career.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I've always approached it in a way where I'm not going to say loose or relaxed, because that sounds a bit negative, but always try to keep a sort of a...
Maybe just open-minded, like see where it goes,
think,
right?
And maybe keep, a healthy balance between what would I like to work with, what opportunities tend to fall into, my lap. Do I seize them? Do I not seize them? And then it's been a combination of, I think, hard work, pursuing interests, and maybe also development. And then again, also, I think luck, opportunities that have presented itself.
Timing. I think it's more timing than it's luck,
that's
right?
probably a better word.
Timing.
You're right.
Yeah.
But I think that's how I ended up at Arla. I think the longer story is that I was at a media agency, and I was there at a point in time where Arla started to insource a lot. They created our internal agency, the Barn. I think it was created, but they started to scale it anyway. So a lot of the people that I worked with, either in teams or on clients, whatever it was, started to move, or not all, but some of them, and some of the ones that I considered, or still consider, that sounds like past tense, I still consider friends in private life as well. And at some point I made, I think either consciously or unconsciously, the decision that I would also like to work for Arla.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then I think 8 months, maybe a year passed where I was in, dialogue with Arla, HR, a couple of guys from the barn, whatnot. I'm in the somewhat awkward position that one of my best friends, if not my best friend, is one of the people heading up the barn. He heads the media buying part of it, which with my background and what I did at the agency would probably be where I would slot in best if I went to the barn. But we both agreed that it was probably not a good way to maintain our friendship.
Too much nepotism as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it had, in quotations, it had to be more on the brand-led side. And then a couple of more months passed, and then an opportunity in our licensed partnership team with Starbucks presented itself, and then I applied. And
what media agency was that?
Carrot.
Okay,
Dentsu.
Okay, interesting. So when they started building that, did you see some of the best talent getting pulled out of Carrot? Is that what they were sort of doing?
Maybe not out of Carrot, but out of Dentsu as the overall umbrella. A lot of the media buying guys in particular, a couple of the creatives as well went out there. So I think it was, that alongside knowing people out there, as I mentioned, my friend out there, talking about Arla as a place for development, as a place that focuses a lot on also the private person, not just the professional person. I'm not saying that Dentsu didn't, don't get me wrong, but I think there was just a lot of appealing things. I was also in a position in my life where my wife and I had just had our first kid. We knew we were going to want one more, most likely. So it made sense to also pursue something more stable, for lack of a better word.
But it's a good point. I think that's also, that is the argument, right? Like that is the main reason why I think a lot of people find that attractive, is like, okay, I can maybe have, because agency life is it
can be unpredictable.
Yeah, it can be unpredictable, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, everyone's got to put in some overtime, and everyone's got to, and it is, it isn't the, it's more of a young person's game a lot of times, right? And as like I went also client side from an agency somewhat at the same time. Like I was having a kid, things were like, okay, I needed to maybe just have a little bit more stability, a little bit more like straight 9 to 5. And that's when I went client side as well. And it's a good opportunity to see. It's also a good opportunity to see like, okay, how do you go deeper into something? Because as an agency person, you're often jumping around.
You're working the length and not the depth.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the questions that was brought to my mind when you were talking about it is okay, so in sourcing a media buying team versus outsourcing that, what benefits do you see to insourcing versus what are the drawbacks of insourcing that in your opinion? Because I'm curious, I know you're working on brand side now, but your background in media is quite interesting as well.
I think it's a super both interesting and also very valid question. I think to people that support or don't support insourcing. I think from our perspective, what we can see is obviously there's a financial aspect in it where fees, hours, charges for that drop out. Then we have to pay for people, which is also expensive, but it's less, I guess, less apparent for when you do actual media pushes, right? Then you have a tendency to look at how much is spent and less on how much flows into people, more or less. I think that is one. And then I like the... I don't know if this is only this is only a truth for me basically on how I work on Starbucks in Arla, but I think I feel closer to how our media is purchased, but also how the setup, the optimizations, the day-to-day planning. I was also in touch with that when I was at the agency, but that was more because. Not because I had to, don't get me wrong, it was my job, but I think here there's a closeness in how we do it and how we run it, both with our global barn, but also the local ones we have in markets where it makes, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to be that close to what we do. Will that always be the case? I don't know. Maybe I guess there'll be a cycle, and then if you invite me back in 5 or 10 years, then we'll be talking about how we're outsourcing.
Maybe. Well, that is always the case.
Right?
Like it's always an in-out sort of thing for years, right?
Yeah.
But I do think like you put a fine point on it, I think, or what I think you were trying to get at is that oftentimes when you work on the client side and you're using a lot of different agencies, sometimes you can feel like the success of a campaign or the success of marketing isn't yours to fully own and also yours to fully follow, because you're using external parties. So I do feel like sometimes on the client side, when you do have it all in-house, you feel a little bit more pride towards your job, a little more connection to it, a little more, like you said, like deeper into it. So that is one of the main benefits of it for sure.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a level of accountability also towards an internal agency. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that an external agency wouldn't also be accountable, but I think there is this, I don't want to sound like a cliche. That's one of my, I fear so much that I'm going to sound like a cliche in this hour.
That's okay. We're all walking cliches over here.
But I think there is a, there's a togetherness in it because we all work under the same company, so to speak. Yes, there are different brands, but at the end of the day, it's the same company.
So you have a bigger purpose together as well.
I hope. I think purpose is a big word because it's milk and coffee and cheese and whatnot. But still, I think there is this connection on that as well.
What do you think the drawback is to insourcing?
I think that it puts a very high demand on the internal agencies in terms of capabilities and inspiration. They need to, I guess, prove themselves constantly and not just be a cost-cutting exercise, but also a something where they can actually prove point that this works
better than actually better from a
that's how I measure them anyway.
standpoint.
If we now it's getting the numbers are getting outdated because we've been running with the barn we're going on year 3 now, so obviously it's hard to compare agency performance to what they do now, but initially we compared the savings, the performance on engagement levels, reach, whatnot, that they were able to deliver, and then we tried to do. I get we can't do a like for like comparison on it, but it was the best we could do basically to try and proof point it a little bit.
Yeah, of course. You got to prove the concept and also be able to get further investments. So you need to say, here, look, we've saved this much, and we've making the same amount of money or whatever the case is. But
I think it is that the demand is that they need to be able to to follow the level. And then I think what is apparent to me, I don't know if that's the case for everyone who works with the barn in Arla, but what's apparent to me is also that we're walking an interesting line in terms of when can they say no and when can't they, because there is that they're.
Do you find that internally, like you kind of have to?
No, I think
can't
sometimes
necessarily just roll up and be like, "Hey, we got to run this now." Like they kind of.
That's what I do, and that's what I mean. That sometimes I think there's an element of them maybe not putting the brakes in as hard as an external agency would do, and say, "Okay, there's no way we can do this. Sorry, timing wise, we can't make this happen."
So there's less brakes.
They have to proof point themselves constantly, basically.
Okay.
So
they have to react, and
they have to a degree. I think it was more apparent in the build-up phase of it more than it is now, because now there are a lot of people, so they can take in, they can absorb it.
Yeah.
But initially, I think I told them, you have to be the ones that stop me, not the other way around. I'm not going, if you don't tell me that you don't have the time, then I'll expect that you have the time. I mean, that's how I work. I'm really sorry, but that's,
Yeah, that's natural. Yeah. I think that's like with any internal marketing teams. I mean, they've all had that sort of, thing where you got HR coming to, we need this part of the website done, or this team's coming to you, and it's like, as the internal agency, you really have to be smart with your time and be able to say, okay, we can do this tomorrow or the next day or a week from now. We can't do it now.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, makes sense. So the disadvantage is that they'll just take everything in, and
theoretically anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
I have yet to experience them like say, hard no. It's more a question of when than it is no, we're not going to do it.
Okay, we'll see. I wanna circle back to you and wrap this little introduction up with of you.
Yeah, do you have any?
No worry. Do you have any?
Sorry, that's my fault.
I love it, but it's But do you have any advice you would give for young marketeers who aspire to be
young Dennis? If you could go back, meet young Dennis in the street, what would you say?
What would I say? I think I would say
work hard, play hard, stay motivated.
No, again, I'm so afraid of being a cliche. No, I think I would, if it was myself, one-to-one, I would say don't limit yourself in terms of what you want to do. Believe in expanding capabilities as opposed to narrowing them into specialities, if you will.
To be more of a generalist.
Yeah, I think so. If you want to be a brand marketer anyway and work in a company like Arla, then I think it's important that you have certain level of business understanding. You have a level of innovation understanding. Commercial understanding. How does everything play?
Yeah.
How do you make it work? But overall, I think it's. I mean, again, I'm so afraid of taking, jobs too serious. Basically, I mean, just enjoy it. Go for what you like, and if that's development, if it's being, having stability, then I think that's where you need to go. And then always, reflect. I'm a big fan of reflecting and trying to sort of, feel where am I at in this current state of mind. I think that is probably the best I can say. That's
it's good advice.
Be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
Again, massive cliche. I know.
That's okay.
We added a little sound every time it's a cliche.
Every time I say cliche, just mute me, beat me. Yeah,
That's okay. That's all right. I'm Canadian and I drive a pickup truck. I'm the biggest cliche on the planet. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, cliches are there for a reason, right?
that's true.
Because they work.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
It's okay. So, can you tell us a little bit more about this partnership between Arla Foods and Starbucks? And this is essentially what you're in charge of, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the activities and responsibilities within that collaboration?
Yeah, not necessarily in charge of, just one of the people responsible for it. I can. Long story short, then Arla Foods on an EMEA level, so Europe and Middle East, and I guess Northern Africa as well. Not fully up on my abbreviations of markets, but it's there or thereabouts. We have a license partnership agreement with Starbucks for their full ready-to-drink portfolio, basically. So all of their cold coffee. It's
the stuff in grocery stores and
exactly convenience petrol
stores.
stations,
that kind of stuff.
wherever you find them chilled.
So
basically.
not the stores, not the coffee shops.
No, not the hot coffee.
Okay.
It's set up in a way where we have, as I said, the license partnership, so we can produce, market, and obviously sell the products. We pay Starbucks a royalty for that, and then we also buy the coffee from them in the partnership, and that is essentially the gist of the business part of it. Then there are a lot of contractual obligations, obviously, but overall, if you look at how we split the partnership, then Starbucks are in charge of what I call brand, basically, or content. So, and we're in charge of execution. So if I give you an example of that, then that would be, this year we've launched a new campaign, so a new brand campaign. Starbucks are in charge of that. Obviously, we chip in, we're heard in it. It's not like it's, two separate parallels that are just running. It is very much I think we've developed into, I guess, some sort of an organic partnership where we are moving closer together, as opposed to at the beginning where it was very, the lines were drawn, so to speak, in terms of who did what. Now we are very close to each other, even if they're in London and we're in Viby, of all places. But they're in charge of the master brand, so to speak. So the brand values, brand campaign, whatnot, and then they essentially hand that to us and say, okay, here's the brand identity, here are the values, here's the tone of voice, everything you want. And then we take that, and in cooperation with the barn, we repurpose content into how can we execute it on whatever platform we decide. Starbucks are part of that partnership with the barn, basically. So it's essentially Starbucks that are in the barn, but I run that part of it there. But that is so I think the executional and commercial side of things is an Arla point of view, and then the content part or the overall brand part is the Starbucks point of view. And then there are a lot of things in between, like innovation, product innovation, right? Where that is very much a two-way street. We can run it, but Starbucks can also run it. We can initiate it, Starbucks can initiate it. So it is very much a joint process, basically, and much like
if you
projects.
see a certain product would perform better in Denmark or Germany or something, then you guys would say, hey, we think we should do this.
Yeah, also just in general, a trend on, if let's take what should I take? Let's take a new flavor, for instance, on one of our propositions. If we see that works, sometimes Starbucks will have insights from their coffee houses, right? Where they'll say, we see that this has a high rotation or people are buying it a lot. Why not look into whether or not that can be a cold coffee proposition as well? And then the innovation,
Pumpkin
I'm not saying that's
cold,
how it
pumpkin
I'm
spice
very
cold latte. Is that where we're going?
I've never heard mentioning of it,
No,
so
okay.
I won't make any promises, but
right.
you never know.
Yeah, I think that'd be a big
tuned.
seller. Pumpkin spice cold latte, yeah?
Could be.
All right.
Yeah.
vote in the comments below if you'd like to see a pumpkin spice
Please don't.
latte.
No promises, but
I don't influence innovation that much,
Yeah.
so please don't vote in anything.
No. Right. PSCL.
but Chris can make one. Starlux or something.
Star.
With
I
that
think I'd
flavor.
get sued.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm
that
gonna
we
get
would be talking again.
Yeah. Pretty sure I'd be having
In a
lawyers.
different setting.
Yeah.
In a very
I would
formal
not do
talk.
that.
Yeah.
Publicly, I'm stating right now, if you see a Starlux, it's not mine.
Yeah.
It's used.
Yeah. So, can you actually just talking now? Can you give us a little bit explanation or on the partnership with the barn?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward from a Starbucks perspective, because again we only, in quotations, repurpose content that we already get. Had it been a Lurpak or a Castello, then the barn could have been the creative lead on it, so they would have done the development itself, whereas they only repurpose it for us. But essentially there are 3 legs in the barn where I work with 2 of them: creative, which is repurposing, and then media buying, and then we have a third one, which I think is digital development, where website and whatnot sits, dashboards, easier solutions, more the own part of, I guess, the ecosystem. We don't work that much with them because Starbucks owns the website, because again, it's very brand led. So that is their platform. We don't execute anything, sell anything on there. So again,
There's no Starbucks.dk that you need to be a part of or anything like that.
No, I mean it sits on a joint platform. So we are involved, and I am involved in talks, regular meetings with their agency and whatnot, but it is, at the end of the day, it's Starbucks' decision on how the website evolves and what they want to do with it. Again, there are no, we as a company, we don't have a web shop, for instance. Had we had that, then obviously we would need to be even closer to it, but because of it being purely brand-led, then it's secondary, I guess you could say, for us at Arla.
How does that translate locally when you get this content from global? Like how,
Is
What's
it
the
easily
strategy?
translate? Like, does it make sense, or do you have to figure out, like, you have to really squeeze it into something that
where's
works
the
locally?
challenge?
Would you have time?
No, I think, obviously a challenge in receiving master brand communication and then cutting it into, to shorter formats, to formats that are meant to drive engagement, reach, top of mind, whatever that may be. That is going to be a challenge also, because at the end of the day, Starbucks has to approve the content. And I'm not saying we don't see eye to eye. We very much do. I think we differ maybe 1 or 2% on how we look at content in general. They have to be very protective of their brand. Sometimes I have to push them a little bit in terms of what do I see fit for platform audiences. How do we deliver on the internal KPIs or metrics that we measure in Arla? But I mean, that is a challenge to make. The cornerstone of the brand campaign that we've done is a 20-second TVC, and then you tell me how easy it is to cut it to 6 seconds bumper on YouTube, for instance. I mean,
Pack shot, close.
you're a creative, I hear.
Yeah.
Just throw the pack shot on, tagline, John.
No, but I mean, I think it is.
That's the only thing you can do sometimes. Is like,
I think that is. It has a degree of truth to it. That's for sure. But I mean, that's a challenge. Then obviously localization process. We don't localize to all of our markets. That would be a nightmare if we translate it into Danish and Swedish and German.
Really?
And we only translate into German, Swedish, Dutch, Spanish, and Arabic.
Okay.
The rest of our markets we run on UK.
Really? So in Denmark, you guys run English as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I mean, I think that's also a lot of brands with your type of setup have gone that route. They've said, okay, I mean, there's so many people speaking English here. Might as well just run it in English. And it just probably performs the same.
We don't see a difference. Very minor on metric level anyway. I don't know how it is on perception, but we don't on metric level in terms of completion rate or whatnot. We don't see any difference when we've tested it. It's been very minor, but
I think the drinks category especially allows that. Like you see, like Oatly, for example, even Naturally to some extent has also been running a lot of stuff in English in the Danish market. So I think the drinks category especially has been pretty good with that.
I think there's also an element of taking yourself serious as a global brand, right?
Then if you're a global brand, then you run in the most global language, I guess.
Yeah, and how does the identity make, how does it resonate the most? Is that in Danish or is it in English? And the campaign, at the end of the day, it's worked out in UK, right? So or in English. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
What kind of KPIs are then the focus, and then what can be the challenge in achieving that? Because I imagine when you get this pack shot, this masterpiece, whatever, it can be hard if it's not that easily localized.
Yeah. I think if I start at the KPIs, then the outlook I have on KPIs is that they are often very short-term focused, and I accept that as part of being in marketing. I think you have to. Within Arla, we essentially work with an overall metric we call engagements, similar to an engagement on Meta, for instance. Not completely the same. It's been, for lack of a better word, adapted a little bit to better feed into how Arla views. We have an overall digital strategy or agenda, whatever you want to call it, that's called brand to shelf, basically. So how do you go from campaign into sale, more or less? What are the steps, and how do you feed into that? The engagement metric is all about time with consumers. That's what we chase also on Starbucks. I think I try to balance, and I say but it's in cooperation with the barn, obviously. We try to balance reach on one side, and I'll get back to why we need that, and then obviously attention on the other one, so time with consumers, basically. I work with a brand in a category that is super nascent. It's very, very infant still. No one knows it exists in a lot of the markets that we're in, so we can't just focus purely on time with consumers, so to speak. We need to also reach a lot of people to make them aware of that we exist. That is what we have to do on the one side. So obviously reach is an important metric for us to look at. And then on the other side, as I said, time with consumers. So view through, focusing on, for instance, log format on YouTube, so whatnot, right? I mean, that is where that's on a KPI or on a metric level. And then I think on more of a creative level, we do seek to, how should I put it? The overall sort of purpose of the campaign is to drive a more emotional connection with consumers, because we can see that we are very functional in everything we do, and because of that we're also put in a very functional frame of mind, so to speak. When consumers view at the products, then they're constantly just looking at why instead of why do I like you, and that is what we're working on with our new campaign, basically, that Starbucks have put together to drive more emotional connection. And then obviously our digital agenda slots into that to a certain degree.
People have an emotional connection to coffee in the first place, right? So I think in terms of drinks, I think that's probably, it's also the most occasion-based drink other than alcohol, maybe. Tea? Really?
Yeah.
No? Yeah, okay, maybe in Britain, but not in Denmark.
I think we've done a fairly large piece of strategy work on digital where we looked into coffee as a whole. We can't translate it one-to-one into ready-to-drink coffee, but there is, I'll support you in saying that, yes, it's by far the biggest, outside of alcohol, the biggest occasion-based.
That's what I would think anyway.
Yeah, we work a lot with need states in Arla, and coffee ticks, plays into a lot of them.
Okay. Yeah, because you're right in a sense. Also, like that emotional connection is also hard to do with because the cold drink coffee is like a special category of its own, where it's more like on the go. Exactly. I just need it's a treat in some ways. Like it's not necessarily a sit down and have a cozy time with your coffee. It's more of I would really like some caffeine. I like it cold because I need something refreshing.
Pre-workout, there's also that, right? You can drink it for.
Oh yeah, that's all right. That's an interesting occasion. I don't know if you guys ever tapped into
we have
the pre-workout section.
Yes and no. We have an energy proposition, we call it. So we call them double shot and triple shot, which are more, how should I put it? Maybe more, not more coffee forward, so to speak, but they are more focused also in the comms agenda on things, more focused around this, not caffeine kick, but trying to play into the energy part of category. But I think you're right in terms of, on the go is also inherently very functional, right? Yeah. And that's why it's so difficult.
Not emotional.
Exactly. It's very difficult because when you can place it in an occasion, then it becomes more emotional.
Yeah.
But when it's on the go, inherently something you go and grab and then leave for the next thing that you're doing. And I think that's where we're going with what we're trying on the campaign, you know, to try and be that in-between kind of product, or that in-between top of mind, if you will.
It could be something, I'm just brainstorming here, I don't know why, but it came to mind like, you know, the sort of, and because you have such a short period of time also to grab attention, it's like that quick cut, mom or dad dropping the kids off at school, and then having that emotional connection to Starbucks in the car on the go. It's because it's on the go, it's fitting that occasion, but it's also attached to that emotional aspect of, thank God I've gotten rid of these brats and I'm ready to hit my day, and I have a Starbucks in my hand, and that's like, that's a triumph in some ways.
Something you look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
When
like
you run these errands,
when
or
you
whatever.
get rid of these somebody else's kids, I don't know whose they are. They're not mine anymore. Take them away.
But then it's like, and it's a comfort thing, and not only a to-go thing. Like I would think I'm not a big tea drinker, but you often, I would at least associate tea with, you know, relaxing, read a book, whatever, like in the evening. So it's like cozy, comforting. And then when you do that with the to-go coffee, it kind of gets that purpose as well. Like it's suddenly a comfort thing, and not only, you know, something you can look forward to.
And that's what you're struggling with, I guess, or not struggling with. That's what you guys are moving towards, is like, how do you create that less about function and more about treats,
luxury,
or sort of
a treat,
an emotional
We're trying
connection.
to, we're actually working on a thing right now, and now I'm looping back to the barn. They shouldn't be allowed to hear this.
Okay.
We're not
I give them too much credit.
The barn, it's we're gonna cut you off here. We're gonna see what your IP address is, and
then just not serve anything.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we're working on a project in cooperation with them, but also Starbucks on. So essentially, in the portfolio, we have 3. That's not entirely true, and my colleagues are gonna kill me because I leave out some of their platforms. But we have essentially 3 platforms, which is our Chill Classics, the cups. If you've seen them on shelf, they are more of we call it a daily ritual, so to speak. Then we have our Frappuccinos, which is very much also from a coffee house. They're in a glass bottle. They're more of a delicious treat. And then the energy that I just mentioned, those are the 3 top ones.
What about the Nespresso things? Is that done by somebody else?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you mean the
little
capsules?
Capsules.
Yeah, they're another license partner that Starbucks has on those.
I didn't know that.
Nestle, I would say.
Yeah,
I can't even remember,
Nestle.
but I think that it's them. Also up here.
Okay, we'll cut that out. Fuck Nestle. We won't mention that. No, we love you, Nestle.
But we are working on a project for our Chill Classics and our Frap propositions, because we've basically seen in research that consumers can't really tell them apart, both from a consumption point of view, but also in general. I mean, obviously they can see the difference between a cup and a bottle in glass, but outside of that, then they have a hard time. You know,
is this a bottle? I love that. They can tell the difference. That's a good step. It's a good step.
No, but I would never overestimate consumers.
No, but I agree with you. Sometimes they don't know.
To
like,
make it simple.
Is this a different product range? But you're right, it is. I mean, like, I'm making fun of myself because I am in that boat. Like, isn't this all the same? But it's not. It clearly is.
And again, it's you hit the point home in terms of what is the problem basically on it, because it is we can't strike that. So we're starting to work on something where we're gonna try and one thing is obviously, and that's back to, you asked about the challenges. Obviously one of the challenges in repurposing is that you don't create fit for platform content, which for a media and marketing kind of guy like me, that is like not the holy grail, but it's one of the first things that I go to. How do we fix something? Platform first content, audience first content, if you will. So but that's a drum I've been banging for quite a while, and now it's resulted into a project where we're going to take those 2 platforms that I mentioned on product level and then say, okay, how do we make them more distinct? One of the levers to pull is to create more platform-specific content, basically, to drive that emotional part of it, to put it into a context that is less. I should be careful what I say, but maybe less functional.
But wouldn't that be more? I mean, platform and audience, in my mind, are parts of the same coin in some ways, because like you could say an older segment is for Facebook, younger segment is for TikTok, so you kind of with the platform selection, you're also creating some sort of audience segmentation as well. Sort of what Coke did with Coke Zero versus Diet Coke. Like they're also making sort of distinctions, saying, well, Coke Zero is more masculine, Diet Coke is more feminine, and they went that route with it. Is that what sort of you guys are looking at as well?
To an extent, I guess. I will probably never try to put it into male and female.
Right.
But
Yeah,
obviously
it wouldn't
there
work
are
today.
No.
I think and that's also why Coke Zero, they went feminine again with it, because they're like, okay, we can't just target men with Coke Zero. But at the beginning, it was very much that.
But yeah, I think we obviously we acknowledge that there, from a demographic point of view, especially on age, is going to be a difference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on who consumes the product and who can afford it also, because it is a premium priced product. So that is part of it. But I think it's more around also making the product play. Do you follow? To make it come to life in the assets. I'm not saying we don't already do that in what we've already produced, but maybe doing it more on media terms than on brand terms.
Okay.
And that is I guess, a dangerous exercise.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how you make that happen.
To set your brand free a little bit on that. I'm also... I'll look forward to see how they solve it.
Yeah, exactly, because I think, like, okay, I'm a little bit crazy, but I do believe that brands have less control over their own brands these days. I think, like, it's very much in the hands of the consumer. It's very much... And I think that's also what you want. You want to have a brand that consumers feel so connected to that they're willing to play with it and make their own brand out of it in some senses, right?
Yeah.
So in some senses, like, the most forward-thinking brands are the brands that, like, what you guys are thinking as to say, how do we set it free? If we love it, how do we set it free? And I think that's it's a smart move. It's how it comes together.
Yeah.
Is the
It's
hard
not necessarily a
part,
bad thing that it's perceived different depend on the market or the audience, right? At all.
No.
You just have to own it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our position, and probably also Coke or who that may be, players of a similar magnitude in their category, I think we, and I say we as an Arla, because also in the partnership, we have an obligation alongside Starbucks to not devaluate their brand, basically. We are very focused on positioning Starbucks, also the RTD part, as a premium brand. That is one of the cornerstones of what we do. I think we have the, in regards to what you're saying around, setting the brand free and letting consumers decide, I think we have the upside in that the category is not that developed, so the products are not that developed, meaning that we can help sort of push or set the boundaries for what is the brand going to look like? What's the product going to look like? We can chip into that. But again, I completely agree with you. I believe a lot in in to a degree anyway, setting your brand free and letting consumers play with it in a manner that makes sense. For them more than for me.
I guess it's the challenge is making sure that it still stays premium, because that is the big challenge. And I think you also see brands like Louis Vuitton have that issue, because they set it free, and then
Jack and Jones
also
had huge
have that
problems.
issue. Like it's an issue for any brand that becomes mainstream. How do you keep that premiumness? And I think as iced coffee has been like a very, I think a growing category, you have this issue of it becoming too mainstream, and then how do you keep that premiumness and also allow people to play with it? So it's a challenge. I have no idea how to solve it. The big brains at the bar
call me.
No, I don't think I will. I don't think I will be able to solve it. It's a tough one. I mean, obviously there's ways around it. I think that I mean, and Starbucks, head office knows this. I mean, we've developed a lot of Giphy stickers for clients, AR filters with clients, like creative tools that people can use to be a part of the brand, rep the brand, ambassador the brand, also, play with the brand. Those are always good sort of ways to start it. And I think, the platforms now allow for all of that with, AR kits and stuff like that. So, whether that's TikTok, Instagram, or Snapchat, or, even YouTube for some stuff like that, it makes a lot of sense, and it can be the first entrance into doing stuff where you're allowing people to play with the brand. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there's complete, like, you know, producing wearables and producing tons of becoming a clothing line and letting people sort of play around with it that way. And that's another sort of aspect that maybe falls less in the premium category.
But there's a lot of merchandise anyways from Starbucks, right? So it wouldn't be totally off.
It wouldn't be totally off, but not in your category in a sense. But that's the interesting
less
one.
Anyway, we are. I think we're dipping our toes into the whole gift with purchase thing as well. I've been doing it for quite a while, obviously with inspiration from the master brand. This is going to be the first year where we run a Christmas jumper, for instance, which I'm very excited about. So let's see how that.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. So you guys are already like, you guys have got ways into it, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think still I think you're onto something around the way I look at it anyway is that we're still very infant, much like the category. Then in our setup, we're also still very infant. We might be, Starbucks and Arla Foods, two very large companies in different scales, obviously. We have our internal agency that are, firing on all cylinders as well. But still, the category and the brand and how our setup is still very infant. Yeah. It is. We're still figuring it out, basically. Yeah. I mean, we did as I said, we did a strategy project last year for digital, where one of the objectives that I put in to our agency was, what is the role of digital in our ecosystem? I mean, that tells you where we are. We're not. I have to be careful not to offend myself too much, but we're not. we were not trailblazers in that sense. We're not the risk takers on all of that. I think we're still trying to figure out, how do we connect with consumers? How do we make our brand more meaningful? We look very much to influencers right now, which I know is to people like you, most likely, especially the younger people.
I love that he points at me when he says younger people.
I can only assume you're the youngest in the room. I mean, it's.
Yes.
I think the plant is older than you.
I really hope not.
Sorry. You don't know how old that plant is.
It's an old plant.
Yeah.
But I think
we're good with it.
It's influencers as a discipline, right? A media discipline is something I think you'd be much more accustomed to than I am. So that's also something where we're only just starting to explore, like, what can we do? We've run it very locally, let it be up to markets how they do it. And now we're trying to help them a little bit in terms of how do we position it? What is it that we want people to do? How do we make them work with, with the campaign and with the cues that are in the campaign? How do we make them do content on our behalf that is still premium, but also feels
but you make it
real.
Personal, and personalize it.
We try.
But I think it's a nice approach, because the statement you also have, like, you're such a type when you drink a sort of coffee, if you're a cappuccino guy or a latte girl, or it's kind of a statement, right? You can kind of personalize it in a sense that sometimes people may like this. There's potential for it anyways.
Yeah. There's also something, okay, now I'm totally giving you cool ideas that you probably already had yourself. But it's funny, like, the whole culture of getting a Starbucks cup from the store that has your wrong name on it.
We've
I'm sure you've played with this, but I think that's also funny at the store level, at the boutique level. How do you do that on an iced coffee? That's
we have been right? There's been talks around doing something similar to when Coke put names on that, and then playing around with it. But I've never
spelling
heard
names wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of Sauron, it's like Sauron, or like.
That's very, very good pronunciation.
Yeah, take that. That's ready to go idea.
Yeah, there you go. Fuck up everybody's names on the glass bottles.
If I do that, Starbucks are gonna kill me.
Yeah, probably. It's not a premium, and it's also probably. But they leaned into it, didn't they? On the global level, didn't they lean into the fact that everyone's names are written wrong?
I think they do.
I think they do. I think they make fun of themselves as well. Like, but okay, you've had the idea. I'm not giving you anything new here.
But Swan, that's new.
Swan.
Yeah. You can take
Ice
that
latte for Swan.
Do store activations or like call people's names. Yeah, give them a cold beverage.
I like this idea a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we're off topic.
Not at all.
My bad.
Not at
guys.
all.
Please delete all of
It's
this.
no,
Oh,
actually.
no, I think this has legs.
Yeah.
He's so foolish. yeah, that's a good idea, Chris. We'll talk about it next time.
Yeah. In 5 years, we'll circle back and see where we are.
I'm really sorry, people who are all listening on the podcast and those people at
Yeah.
at Starbucks.
Okay, actually, we are coming to an end. I think that could actually be a nice segue. If not that idea, where do you see your guys moving in the future?
If not this idea, what else are you going to do?
Smooth segue. Let's move forward.
Okay, good idea. Please give us something better.
Do you think, I know you said that you're fairly new, but where do you see personally that you could further develop for you guys to create this synergy and develop the partnership?
I think I'm not a creative. I'm not the only one not a creative. So I don't think from a campaigning level or identity level, then it would be hard for me to say I think we need to do this or this. But I think from a partnership perspective and from also a digital strategy perspective, which is also what we're talking about a little bit, right? Then I think we need to maintain what we're doing basically, which is this. We have in Arla, it's called, I think, test and learn. I tend to call it test and scale. That's the beauty of being on a less developed brand. Then scale comes quicker than it does on a more established one. I think we need to continue that. Basically, we're constantly trying to expand how we look at media. Basically, so are there any? I'm not as naive to sit here and say that we find white spaces on where we can connect with consumers. I think that's not for me to do that, or for the barn for that matter. But it is, in essence, it is looking for where can we get more time with people? Where can we get people to have an opinion on our brand, on our products? How can we assist people in having that, that feeling and that understanding of how our products slot into their everyday lives? Because it's not, it's not a bank loan or buying a car or anything. It is a very day-to-day purchase. That's where frequency is also a key that we need to look at.
Part of their day life every day.
Exactly. We want to be a part of a routine, basically, without being a routine. I guess you could say, a routine brand anyway. So I think that is, that's. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it is.
So no brushing your teeth with Starbucks.
It's probably not a good idea.
That's not a good idea. It's very routine.
Unless you want you want fake teeth. Then
that's
I think
nice
it's
look.
a brilliant idea.
Porcelain.
Yeah, but that's actually funny. How do you become part of someone's daily routine without becoming routine?
Yeah,
it's a brilliant insight. Like, that is the challenge.
I think that is, that's, and again, with the fear of being a cliche, then I've also seen a quote circle around in different sort of context or formats, but essentially, worrying about, being what people are interested in as opposed to interrupting what they're interested in, basically. That is, that's a little bit what I also try and remind myself sometimes, because I think we as media specialists, strategists and whatnot, we have a tendency to look at it in a sense where can we get you to watch something, as opposed to how can I get you to take an interest into something, and that is.
Yeah, I think it's easy to reach people. It's hard to engage.
Exactly,
right? That's the difficult part. I think you can just throw as much money. I mean, and Arla and Starbucks have lots of money to do that, but how do you actually get that engagement? How do you get that share together sort of thing?
Value for money.
And how do you prove it as a also something on the bottom line? How do you generate?
That's also the case. Like, okay, did it make any sales? That's the next question. I even get that on huge reach campaigns that we have for
but
clients.
That's struggling.
But that wasn't the KPI. The KPI was brand awareness and connectivity and engagement.
I can tell you from experience that people in commercial units or business units, they don't care about reach.
No.
I've experienced that on firsthand. They don't really care about they'll say, cool, that's a big number. But did we sell more? Are we going to sell more? When is it going to happen?
When?
But that's not an unusual struggle, right? I think every
I think it's
branding
completely fair.
marketer is a struggle with that.
I wouldn't want to be in a company where I wasn't held accountable on that part as well. Definitely.
Yeah, pushes you.
Not saying it's easy, but yes, it pushes you.
Makes sense.
Nice.
Cool.
So here we have it, guys. How to work a global strategy into regional execution from Dennis Korsbæk Præst, the global brand manager.
Very long name when you say it like that.
It's so official.
Very,
so the global brand
He's
manager.
royalty, you know.
Yeah.
No, I feel very old.
Yeah, okay.
When you pronounce my full name, it's like,
we got to take
It's
like
your
when
name though.
People have started
Okay,
calling
I
me
can
sir,
say-
like in
I can-
trains and buses and
sir, yeah.
Sorry,
I saw the podcast,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, sir and Mr. Dennis.
Mister, that's the one.
Mr.
That's right.
Okay,
Oh,
but thank you so much for sharing, Dennis.
Thank you.
The global
Thanks for
brand
having me.
manager at Starbucks at Arla Foods. Thank you for listening and
Thanks.
tune in for the next one.
Cheers. See you guys.
Bye.
This has been the Social Media Sucks Podcast.